everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Wake the Future, outdoor edition. We have moved out of our house into the outdoor version of our house.
We're going to be doing a lot more.
And now we get to snuggle, right? Now we're actually, instead of stools, we're here on this cozy couch.
I'm actually so happy this time
Aren't
of
you
year.
happy to be so close to me?
I'm extremely, let's get even closer. Can we like overlap? No, this is like, this is my favorite time of year. So now that we can do more of these outside, get a little fresh air while we do it, I think, honestly, it's just going to be a lot more fun. So, and we started doing this right around the New Year. So, frankly, we've never been able to do this before. Which kind of
I know,
cool.
I'm already having fun.
Yeah.
All right, so today we are going to dig into Gen Z. For anybody who watched the episode last week, my little solo episode, Sans Jared, not for any reason other than the fact that I was kind of going down into all of these rabbit holes about what was happening at Gen Z with commencement speeches and then the future of work and just widespread disillusionment. The fact that everyone thought that Gen Z was on the hype train with AI and that they were going to be kind of like the first generation of true AI natives. And now they're kind of putting a pin in all of this, being like, no thank you, not interested, super disillusioned. So I just kind of went through a whole big laundry list of articles that I had seen, things that I was thinking about. So I wanted to bring in my lovely co-host over here to then really just kind of look at this through the lens that we approach everything through, which is, what does this mean to the future of their sense of agency and identity? What is their future going to look like? And just kind of share some thoughts on what is going on.
I thought that your video last week was awesome, really important. And so I'm very happy for both of us to pick up the baton here today on this. I just want to preface everything we say here today about Gen Z as two things. We don't assume that everyone that's demographically defined as part of Gen Z is just part of that generation and that exclusively defines them. I also want to make the qualifier that a lot of the observations we're going to talk about over the next few minutes don't necessarily apply equally to every single person in that age group. There are always outliers, there are always exceptions, but I think generally we've seen enough to be able to make pretty educated observations and give an analysis on what's happening with a certain group of people. And so what you put forth last week about all of these people, square in the middle of Gen Z, booing people at commencement addresses and otherwise showing their disdain and disapproval for AI and what the future of AI holds for them and their employment opportunities, that's a powerful cultural signal. You and I have been studying trends for decades. We don't always like to study micro trends and fads. What this is to me is more of a cultural signal.
Well, I mean, okay, so go back to your graduation. I was thinking about mine after I did that episode. And I don't remember my commencement speaker. I just remember going, I remember even attending yours, you were a few years older than me. But short of that, I don't remember jack shit. And because I also
It's because we were drinking way too much beer back then. So we had short-term memory loss. But
it was also just, correct. But I already had a job lined up. Everyone I knew had something lined up. There was not a lot of precarity, and the people that didn't have anything lined up was because they actively didn't line anything up for them.
Right.
The economy was very different. Technology was very different. Everything felt much more linear. So there wasn't much of a flashpoint. It just was like a rite of passage. But now, and what really drew my attention to this was the fact that it wasn't just one university. It wasn't just one group of students. It wasn't even in one general geography. It was spread across the country.
Yeah.
And all of these kids were basically giving a big middle finger to the people up there on stage where they're you're a talking head. You are completely out of touch.
Yeah.
And in the case of Eric Schmidt from Google, where they were basically, F you, you're a billionaire, you're gonna come and talk to me. Not only are you so out of touch, but to use a very old-fashioned term, I think that Gen Z feels totally hoodwinked. Where it's
they do.
The rug was pulled out from under them, where they're F you every prior generation for basically setting me up almost to fail.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things here. First of all, there's a little bit of social contagion here. So something that exists now that didn't exist when you and I were graduating was that if at one or two commencement addresses, the speaker is booed, summarily booed by the people in the audience, then that goes online, then other people start to get motivated and say, you know what, we should probably do the same thing. So there's an element of that. but there is definitely a stronger cultural signal. So to what you're talking about here, like, let's be clear, and I don't know any more poetic way to say this, because we talk about this all the time. I think by and large, Gen Z is massively screwed up. And they are facing tremendous headwinds and are dealing with so many things that we've never seen before. And as I say this, and it sounds derogatory, again, it doesn't apply to everyone in that generation equally. Most, if not all of the things they're facing right now are not their fault. But it is the confluence, it's a perfect storm of all of these factors that have combined to take kids born within certain years and basically say to them, you have a very precarious current reality and a very precarious future. And let's talk about why. First of all,
I was going to say, like, a lot of them didn't even experience a high school graduation.
So this is what I was going to say. First of all, you have the pandemic, okay? The pandemic throws their life out of whack for 2 to 3 years minimum. They don't hit some of their major milestones in life that the rest of us have always taken for granted. Social milestones, proms, graduations, things like that. They are dealing already with the built-in anxiety of being children in this new kind of world. And now you've layered anxiety on top of anxiety by keeping them in this pandemic-fueled bubble. So you take that, you take economic this going on right now, and our current administration is doing that situation no favors. And you have an environment that is volatile, it's unpredictable. They already would have been dealing with a tough job market. Now we're talking about AI and what it's going to do to potentially completely upend the job market, certainly in the knowledge economy, but definitely at the lower rungs of the knowledge economy. Entry-level stuff is going bye-bye.
So that, I think, is the core part of the AI conversation here, because just like we always say, it's like the pace of change is uneven. The pace of, like, AI job disruption, which we've talked about, which a lot of it is a fallacy. It's not doing away in its entirety with a lot of middle management, senior positions, but
it should, but
that's a totally different conversation and one that we have had. But what it is doing to entry-level jobs, it is disproportionately affecting those fresh out of college, those in their early 20s, also having them question the value of a college education to begin with. I, in the video last week, talked about the fact that a large enough percentage of them are going into not only the skilled trades, but they want to create their own businesses. They're going to gig work, partial employment, because that latter, again, it's like, that's like the hoodwinked part of this. It's like they were sold a false bill of goods. It was like, all right, work hard, do this, do that. Like, if I have all of these, like, dominoes in place, then, like, the pot of gold at the end of this will be like this guaranteed nest egg in retirement.
But I mean, you know what? Honestly, that reality, that narrative has been increasingly tossed out the window over the last couple of decades. Like, it's not just this generation. The writing was kind of on the wall before AI. You and I have been talking to companies about this and about millennials and how that was different 15, 20 years ago.
But it's only the second half of that, I think. Right, the first half of it has remained unchanged, which is still that trajectory of going into secondary education, unless you're going into vocational, and then still having some sort of guaranteed employment. And then what happens at the end of it becomes a question mark. But these kids are, like, pulled into, like, rung 1 through 5 of this ladder, and then it's like a drop off.
I think you and I tend to risk over-intellectualizing these things. I think 2 very basic things are happening here. One, and this is very mainstream, number 1, is questioning the value of going to college, questioning the value of a higher education. Is the ROI there? It costs a shit ton to go to school. And whether or not you get scholarships or not, whatever financial aid package you have, unless your parents have the money or you are able to earn a scholarship, you are going to be in debt. And the question is an open one about whether or not that debt that you incur is something that anyone can handle in the future unless you go into one of a few select professions like becoming a doctor. Number 2 is the fact, and this is the reckoning that was long overdue. This is kind of the blessing and the curse of AI, is a lot of entry-level jobs, a lot of lower-rung jobs in these companies in the knowledge economy, they're junk jobs. Those jobs served one primary purpose, to employ younger people so that they could get onto the ladder and eventually get the experience they needed and build the connections they needed so that they could be good when they were needed as they progressed throughout their career. But most lower level jobs in a lot of these companies, the joke used to be In a previous technological age, they were making Xerox copies, they were fetching coffee, they were doing a bunch of BS. And what's interesting is a lot of those lower level tasks, not necessarily fetching coffee, but doing a lot of these lower level administrative tasks that we can use.
You fetch me coffee.
Well, that's because I love you. The fact of the matter is that a lot of those tasks that can now be easily done with administrative databases and tools like Microsoft Office,
totally.
and now the next evolution of that, those can be other sourced to technology. So the fact is, a lot of jobs that probably didn't need to be done by people, and they're generally being done by lower level, entry level people, are going bye-bye. So who does that affect? It affects Gen Zs right now because they're exiting college and are like, I'm stepping. It's like the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade when he has to go through those 3 tasks to try to get to the Holy Grail. And he steps over the ledge and has to trust that there's something to hold him, or else he's going to fall into the abyss. Graduating college now is like...
Is that the scene with the snakes? Because I always fast forward through
No,
that
this
part.
was the scene where only the penitent man shall pass, and then the knight, who was like 8,000 years old, was sitting there falling over himself, protecting the Holy Grail. We'll have to watch it again. So, kids graduating college now are stepping into an abyss. They're stepping into a great unknown, and many of them are going to fall into that abyss. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to be there permanently. It's going to require their wherewithal, their family's wherewithal, and all of us collectively to start figuring this out. And here's why. We talk about the fact that older people, the senior market, the mature market, we do a lot of work with this market. These people are not going to have the social safety nets needed as society ages, so there's going to be a vacuum. What if that same paradigm is now going to apply to the youngest of people entering the workforce? What if, like, there's going to be a 15, 20, 25% underemployment problem with Gen Zs because of this, and they're aware of it? That's why they're booing these people that are out of touch. That's why they're booing these billionaires. What are we going to do to buffer these people who are going to be conventionally unemployable? They're not all going to become solopreneurs. Like, I don't buy this argument that all of a sudden the AI revolution is going to lead to every one of these people, in theory, becoming an amazing entrepreneur. Because to become an amazing entrepreneur, you need to have an idea, you need to be able to sell, and the average person can't do both. So you have this vacuum right now. They know it. They're not stupid. They're actually a lot smarter than we give them credit for. So the net of this, we always think about it as Gen Alpha is gonna make up for those deficits. Gen Alpha is gonna learn from those mistakes. Generations are cyclical. But what if Gen Z deserves more credit than we're all giving them? And in real time, they're basically kind of rebelling, and they're like, no, we are awake. The rest of you are not awake. We are awake to our reality. You're not gonna come in on a horse and help us. So we better figure this out. And it's going to start by telling the authority figures out there who are building this future that doesn't include them, hey, F you, man. And you know what? Good. The question is what happens between now and when a solution is figured out, because that's that gray area we're living in.
I want to take all of what you just said and then put it through the lens of A+I, agency and identity, because obviously, like what you've laid out, this is a very powerful countertrend. The writing was on the wall, right? We weren't just going to think that they were going to like gallop on their white horse into the AI sunset and like just blindly adopt all of these tools because they were told by a bunch of billionaires like this is the second coming, right? Like we knew that the pendulum, just like every other trend, is going to swing back. I think what at least for me personally, I'm surprised just how quickly that backlash happened. I honestly... I thought it was going to take a little bit more time, and it has been very swift. It was like hype train a year ago, now like the booing train this year. And like that is very real. And you and I talk all the time, right? It's like, what does it mean to be TeamHuman? Maybe the silver lining in all of this is the fact that this generation will start rethinking, reimagining, rewriting, and like really prioritizing what it means to be human. Yep. Maybe that's the blessing in disguise of some of this.
It's a huge blessing in disguise. And also think about it this way. A lot of these kids who are now young adults have been taught in these last few years as they go through upper education that using these tools is a cheat. Mm-hmm. It's a cheat code that's not acceptable. Now they're being told by disingenuous billionaires and tech founders that the only way to survive in the future, the way to thrive in the future, is to basically use these as a perpetual hack. So there's a contamination of the message. And also think about it. Everyone promoting AI, whether it is legitimate or not, and we're not anti-AI, we're AI realists. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of muck to wade through. Everyone promoting this has some form of self-interest.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And think about it. These are people who are building tech companies, they're building AI models, they're investing in AI models, they have something to gain.
They call it now, right, like the K-shaped economy.
Yeah.
Where it's like splintering off in these two directions where where it's like the 1% of 1% are wielding an inordinate amount of power, control, influence. And then the bottom 50% on like the bottom part of the K are then like, where am I in this? Am I completely getting left behind?
Yeah.
And like Gen Z is caught up in this wave. But I want to kind of put a bow on some of this. And like one of the things that I keep thinking about is what is their sense of identity going to be? Is it going to be part of the technological story? Are they going to struggle with their sense of self? We've talked about a lot of the mental health issues that are affecting every single age group, but disproportionately younger people. And it's like, will they use AI to assuage some feelings of loneliness and anxiety? Are they going to go, like, become even more insular, like, into themselves? Or are they going to be like, you know what? Like, I miss being with people. Like, I want to engage. I want to go out. I don't think we know the answer to that yet.
We don't. And again, it's organic and it's a moving line. And people change throughout the course of their lives. You and I are different now in our 40s than we were in our 20s. And a lot of that is informed by our life, our career, the way the world has changed. You know, I was just looking back.
We did go out for a lot of dollar beers in our 20s and like very cheap Chinese food.
I mean, the damage I did to my liver.
Great.
But we had a great time. But you know
we
what?
lived in New York. We couldn't afford anything else.
No, we made do. We made do. Like 98% of what we made went into rent. The other 2% went into dollar beers. So, no, but you know, you think about how things change. Like, they will adapt.
Yeah.
But let's be clear. There is an identity crisis among many members of that generation. We've talked about it a little bit between all of the anxiety, and it's multi-layered anxiety that they face, all of the gender identity issues. And again, there is a continuum there. Depending on who you talk to, they think that it is just an evolution of the species. People on the other end of the spectrum think it's all mental illness. What if it's something in between? What if it's the fact that something has been created by this vacuum that's going on with mass identity because of technology? By the way, when we were talking before about all the factors that went into messing with this generation, we didn't talk about the fact that they really were the first generation to come of age with all of social media and all of this digital technology that there is no guidebook for. So we basically threw these people to the wolves.
So
Millennials,
you said to me recently,
Yeah.
and like when we were chatting about this in the kitchen, and like I want you to make this point here because I thought it was so interesting, which is the fact that like they blindly adopted the internet. I mean, it was around when they were born, but like they blindly adopted social media. They blindly adopted like all of the like kind of messaging tool, like whether it was YouTube and Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram. But this one is different.
Yeah.
And that's when everyone is like, oh, AI is just another link in a sequence. And it's like, no, they're picking up on something. They're like, this feels different.
It's very different, but the two are related. And this is how I feel about this. They didn't blindly adopt those things. They did in part, their parents also enabled it. There was no guidebook, and there was no roadmap, and there were no guardrails. I'm using every cliche I can possibly think of. No helmet. Parents basically were like, here you go. You're on social media. You have unfettered access to all this. You know my philosophy on this. I believe that in 10 years, 20 years, and in the distant future, they're going to look back on this generation and be like, 8 to 10-year-olds having their own phones, 10 to 13-year-olds being on social media will be considered retroactively to be child abuse and neglect. That is how I feel about it. You and I raise our son very differently, and I think a lot of people are now going to raise Gen Alphas to be different. So yes, AI is revolutionary, it's evolutionary, it is very different from these other technologies. But at the same time, there's also, it's a different juncture in their lives. All of those formative years were corrupted by these other digital technologies that no previous generation had grown up with. It's part of what's led to them having a mass identity crisis and all this anxiety. Now you layer on AI coming of age at a time when they are entering the workforce. That is like a nuclear explosion on these people. And they are not having it. And you know what? Again, like I said before, it's very easy to criticize this generation en masse, when in reality, maybe they are going to come together. And as a collective, they're going to say, this is not okay. And you talk about a K-shape. I hear this all the time, too. This bullshit jargon, K-shape economy, let's throw that in the garbage. It's not a K-shape economy. It's the Hunger Games coming to life. It is the 1% of 1% reaping the benefits of this, because the benefits are massive, but they're concentrated. And it's everyone else trying to figure it out.
Yeah, Elon
That's
Musk
Elysium.
is on track very soon to become a trillionaire. Like
A
that
trillionaire. We are not people who are anti-capitalist. We don't sit around and bash billionaires just for the sake of bashing them. A lot of what people like Elon Musk are building and doing is amazing. But let's be clear. The benefits are increasingly being concentrated in the hands of a few. This is a worst case scenario. It's what a lot of dystopian sci-fi talked about. Elysium, Hunger Games. That's where we're going. So to call it a K-shaped economy, it's a nerd's way of adding something to the vernacular, which actually means something far more
What about hockey
sinister.
stick growth? What about BHAG?
Boomers, when they were in their 20s, were out there protesting. They were at Woodstock. There was an anti-war movement. They were counterculture. And many of them ended up putting on their suits, going to work, and building the economy that we see today. This generation is going through a flux right now. They have an identity crisis. There's a lot of anxiety. They're worried about whether or not they're going to have full agency, all the things we talk about, A+I. But the question is, as we look back in 20, 30 years, will this generation turn into something else because it had to go through all of this? And my hope is that there will be an evolution. What that looks like, I don't know.
So I think that's a perfect way to kind of end this. And by no means is this the only time we're going to be talking about this facet of Gen Z and AI. I think that this is such an opportunity to have a conversation with any of you watching. So put any thoughts in the comments. As always, thank you for joining today's episode. Stay tuned next Tuesday at 10 a.m. for more. And make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.